Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show about the Sonic and the stuff. My name is Ethan, and with me here to roll on forward is Devin.
What the internet is going to do to society is unimaginable. Who said
Who
that,
said
Ethan?
that? That's my question.
You know who. I'll tell you that. You know who this is because you've sent me this video a long time ago where this person says this.
Repeat the
It's not
quote.
what the internet is going to do to society. What the internet is going to do. Wow. What the internet is going to do to society is unimaginable. There you go. I had to be angry in it. I don't mess up.
Okay. I don't know. Bush. I don't know.
David Bowie.
Oh, okay.
He speaks to Jeremy Paxman,
Yes.
in the
I've
BBC
seen that
interview
a few times. Yeah. Great man.
Yes. What a guy, David Bowie.
I wasn't doing the Trump thing.
It sounded like you were.
You just locked onto it. Yes. Devin, how's it going? How's been life? How are things?
I mean, last time we kind of talked about that. I said, I hope everything's good whenever this episode goes up. I feel like it's only gotten worse. I'm gonna say, it's not great right now, but I know it'll be better. So I'm gonna try to really will it.
Hey, folks, it's
into
the end. It's about the end of August by the time this episode goes up, and I'm sure just so many things have stayed the same since the
Nothing's
sunny, beautiful
changed.
day
Everything's
we
great.
recorded on.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful outside.
So, Devin, you and I are extremely famous Twitch and podcasters, right? We're big streamers. We're big showmans on the internet, I believe is an appropriate word.
We're on the pulse
And,
of the internet stream.
Man, it gets so tough some of these days, Like, we've been doing this for decades now, and, it's starting to take its toll. And
40
I just,
years.
wanted to talk about what you wanted to talk about, because you pitched this episode. The state of being one of the guys online.
One of the guys.
One of these people online, trying to make it and make things that hopefully make others pull out their wallet, but also just get the views so someone else pulls out their wallet as well.
Yeah,
making money, making stuff online.
The question has appeared to us in the form of, which is a weird way of me saying the question is, are we past the golden age of internets? Are we to the point now where people are making things for the money, making things for the views versus making things for the fun? And maybe they get paid one day, maybe they don't, but at least they're just having fun doing it. Is the age of streaming going to be different in 5 years? Is it already different than it was 10 years ago? Like some people have said. Actually, reason this topic kind of came up or it sparked my interest was, or the thing I wanted to point to was Ninja, one of our favorites. I mean, come on, one of the goats.
Sure.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Is
this like a Rouge the Bat style commitment you're making now? Are your two loves Ninja
come on our
and
show,
Rouge?
Ninja, come on the show, dog. No, I mean, like, in all seriousness, Ninja is one of the biggest streamers. He definitely had his big heyday with with Fortnite. That's kind of how he got big, was he was like one of the big Fortnite players, one of the best to play Fortnite. And when Fortnite got big, he also kind of got big with it because he was doing PUBG and stuff, Halo, I believe, as well, before
I
he
never heard of him until he was like the Fortnite guy.
Yeah.
It's also crazy to me that because you sent me that Twitter clip that he still plays the game, and it just seems so route for him at that point that it's like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I would want to be doing that, like a single game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking
I don't know
at
if he streams other things, to be fair, but
I mean, he has done Valorant, looks like, and League of Legends. I mean, I'm going off of Twitch Tracker, which I know isn't 100% accurate, but it's pretty good gauge of.
It's probably not going to lie about the things he's played. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has a list of his average viewers and stuff, and to this day, he still has 19.1 million followers. He has an average viewership of 29,000. People watch him. He peaked with 616,000 people. I wonder if that was the Drake stream back in 2018. He did a stream with Drake and played Fortnite with him. And he streams almost daily still, as my understanding. It says on average he's 4 days a week. But he's doing like 8-hour broadcasts. So to me, it's you're doing a full-time job at that point.
Right.
But most of the time it's Fortnite, but he does just chatting. He does, some of that stuff, League of Legends, and whatnot. But I bring this all up because, yeah, Ethan mentioned there was a clip that went around on Twitter that kind of sparked my interest and wanted to like kind of pitch this conversation because I feel like we've had it either on stream or off stream or off air, where we talked about like, where internet used to be, where like the YouTube streaming used to be, where it's heading, where it is currently. And Ninja, I'll just paraphrase what the Ninja clip was. And I didn't watch like the full context of the clip. It was
Right.
someone did edit down what seemed to be like a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah, he was clearly playing a match and was talking when he had the time and the thought to do it. And it's not, I don't look at that as like, oh, they skipped things. Like it was just,
Right.
getting
But
to the point.
But I just want to preface that in case, I don't know, there's some random Ninja watcher.
Maybe he also found a bridge, and that was just
that was PewDiePie. I will actually point that out in 1 second here in my notes. Sorry, hold on, Mickey.
Mickey has pretty heated opinions about that bridge. To be fair,
yes, he's
I shouldn't have brought it back up. I'm sorry.
I know you said the word, and then he just starts getting upset. No, but I wanted to bring this clip up because in the clip, it originally was the reason I even watched it because it was kind of clickbaity. And what the person who shared the video wasn't Ninja himself. It was like someone clip baiting him or whatever. Not clip baiting, clip chimping him, where he's just pulling clips that will drive the algorithm up, which is what I think his main point is. I don't think he goes the correct avenue of communicating what I feel like he's trying to say.
Because he's just playing and he's talking. It's not like he didn't make a video about it.
Well, the point I want to say, my point of contention with it is he's talking about cancel culture, and we've talked about this on this show here and there, and it's a whole fucking can of worms. Obviously, like, we're not in that avenue of, because most of the time when people talk about cancel culture, they're talking about it from you can't make jokes anymore.
It's a
kind
culture
of aspect.
War thing. It's just
a culture war
the
thing.
things I want to make fun of are not considered nice, and I'm mad that like I'm not getting the response I want.
Yeah.
Or the money.
But how he was using it, though, I feel like if you paraphrase him more, he was talking about like he mentioned how the Twitch world now and YouTube world now is all about drama, and like you have people who hate watch and will try to find a clip out of context or find something to start beef with another person or just to cancel them, as he said, which I'll translate. I think
he's got weird opinions about this thing, like I don't know. Yes.
But not saying there isn't actual like gripes that like, oh, this guy's a pet, like Dr. Disrespect, right? Like that whole thing, which is legitimately should be talked about and should be pointed to as a bad thing. But what he's trying to say is more of like, I said this about this, and someone clips it and tries to make a whole bigger thing out of it. And I think I agree with him to a certain extent, not in the cancel culture aspect. I don't like using that word in this example, but I do agree that a lot of shit, like with especially big streamers who aren't even connected to one another, they try to make it a big thing, like, oh my God, they said this about this guy, and they'll spend hours making content, and then someone else makes a highlight video, oh, this guy's wrong, and then it turns and then it opens up the hive minds of whatever side. It doesn't even matter who's right or wrong at that point. It just turns into, well, fuck you if you watch this person, blah, blah. I mean, I see it with even the streamers I watch, and that's why sometimes I get turned off by big streamers who wind up making that their whole conversation or whatnot. I feel like there's sometimes it's a maturity thing too. I think where, especially if it's something that's not,
and it's the maturity where it's like you said streaming, and it's the maturity of the audience that they cultivate too. Like Ninja certainly has a young audience, like a young audience. You know what I mean? Versus like,
but to people who watched him maybe in 2018. Or maybe are still watching. I'm sure there's still people watching him who were there from, he even mentions it in the clip. He's like, I appreciate everyone who's been with me since the PUBG and early Fortnite days. You're the reason I keep doing this, is what he basically said. And he mentioned he has nostalgia, and that's kind of what I want this conversation to be about. But I do want to mention what you're saying here, where like, there's a maturity of the audience, and that's always been an issue, I think, on the internet, since the internet's been a thing where people hide behind the screen and they can be more anonymous, and you don't know what people's maturity level is. I don't want to even use the word age either, because there's been people I've seen online who are in their fucking 40s and either don't know how to communicate or just are doing dumb shit on the internet, and they wonder why things blow up. To paraphrase a tweet I
saw recently, it was, you people don't realize you are so online that you're actually really mean. Like you're just mean,
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
There's no consequence because you're not saying it to someone's face. And I know that's just like a weird, like, fight me, debate me type of person. You would never in real life. But, like, you talk to enough people online over the years that, like, your maturity level, your respectability level is different than in person, for sure. Which you wouldn't say to a coworker or in a social space.
And to tie my thought back together, because I feel like I was kind of drifting off there. The people who are watching him in 2018, that was, Jesus, like 7 years ago now at this point, so like, did I do the math on that? Yeah, 7. 6, whatever. You know what I mean? That, like, if they were 18 watching them in 2018, like they probably have full-time jobs or just got out of college and all that right now. You know what I mean? And there's a different possible maturity level there. So, like, I wanted to point that out as well, is that, like, yeah, it's hard to know, especially if you're big like him, when you have 29,000 people, how many people are, younger and maybe possibly more immature versus, the people who've been there since day one. But yeah, just go to our main point here, is like these people who are streaming now, or people who are watching streamers now, or just being online. It could be like you're on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. That I wonder, like, for better or for worse, like, how much is this going to change in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And I want to, like, kind of maybe start from, I guess, our kind of, because we both are the same age and we both kind of grew up with the internet.
Well, I'm older.
Internet era by 12 days. I think we both have slightly different experiences with online, but pretty much the same when it comes to it. And there's a lot of people our age who might be watching this who probably can relate. I feel like we got to start there, where it's like, because I think we had this conversation outside of this off air, where, like, there was a level of like wonder and imagination almost of the early internet days, where it's like, wow, like, you can do anything online, and, like, people are doing things for and I want to point to one of our, like, first, I guess, not YouTubers, because I don't like that term comes out of, like, the 2012 onward, I feel like, era, where people started making money off of Let's Plays or vlogs, whatever it was.
And yes, I would specifically say it was, like, probably that year on onward where it was like, oh, there are businesses, like, people are gumming into it.
I think Machinima was a thing around then, 2011, 2012, just as and I know, like, there was other companies, but I know, like, in terms of gaming, Machinima was known at that time as, like, this is where, they had the affiliate program, and, for example, where people, like, these gaming YouTubers signed deals with them and they would be funded to get more reach. Just as an example, like, there was an actual, like you said, business into this. Ad revenue is starting to be used on YouTube. YouTube wasn't just this place where people just upload shitpost videos, equivalent of, hey, I just made this funny video and put it on there for the sake of, this is funny. Not gaining. My goal isn't to, make money. And I feel like that's the biggest difference from now versus then, which is, and this is a fear of mine, I feel like it's only going to get worse, is that the internet and, like, the drive to make things is with the goal of making it your commodity. And this is, like, overall, I think, problem under, capitalism. Like, art, eventually, even the best artist has to succumb to the market, has to succumb to, well, I got to make money. The days of before capitalism, even under feudalism or before that, you had artists commissioned by the king or whatever, be like, hey, I'm going to give you free housing or whatever, and you make a painting of me, and if it takes 20 years, whatever, like, or you
Yeah,
paint these
there
this
there was a
cathedral.
word for that, a patron. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
um
Yeah,
but no, I guess, like I said, let's start kind of at the beginning of, like, because I think we both kind of agree that I mean, or at least in our opinion, and what people are, can disagree, or I think the golden age of the internet, like what the goal, I guess, of the internet was supposed to be, or the fun of the internet, I think, not saying there isn't any fun any right now, like it's not fun or isn't imaginative or isn't creativity. I think there's more than there is ever, but there's also so much negative stuff with it
sure.
compared to what it
And
was.
you
But
know, we are
like,
coming from this too, as a nostalgic thing of what we remember when we were younger. There are people who were that age now who in, 15 years or whatever will be like, "Oh man, remember the Wild West of early TikTok? Remember TikTok?" Like they'll I
Vine.
guess there's always generations and eras with it, but you're right, things do change. And I do want to like before we talk about like our like histories and opinions, I want to make sure at least my perspective on this, like so that it's out front of what like my goals are. Like I would love to be able to do this as a job. I would love to be able to stream and do this as a job. I would love to be able to 4 or 5 days a week do maybe even all day streams of just whatever I want to do, whatever is fun, you know what I mean? And being able to do that. That's like the types of
Right.
people I look up to in this space are the people who do that, who have made a career out of, being themselves and having fun on the internet. I would want to make a lot of money doing it, obviously, but like it's not of like I gotta make the most money ever. I would love again to make this just be the job. And that's all you have to worry about when you wake up in the morning is what would be fun, what would be a cool like new thing. And again, that is what you're saying, like the artist unburdened by capitalism, obviously. But there are people out there that are close enough to that where like they whether it's opportunities for sponsorships and stuff like that, but just being able to do that. So like when we talk about like our early days and all that, my perspective is people who fell into what I would want for myself, you know what I mean? And then that struggle for it. But
Yeah, I think when we go through this loose, like, history, I guess, of our experiences, and maybe this will be I hope this will be interesting to somebody, or at least, like, I feel like it's like an interesting conversation because because I always hear about, like, people who, like you said, maybe are 10 years, 20 years older than us, who are like, when they're like, I know podcasters who were like, I was doing podcasting in 2004. Like, it was such a thing. You'd have to explain to somebody what a podcast even was, or yeah, we had our own website, and like, we posted stuff on there.
God,
We
I
had
would
forums.
love to make a website, like an HTML
Right.
website, like a not
But
using
that was like a thing that everyone like was doing then, because
yeah.
this was before things like Reddit, which kind of overtook for the most part the idea of, a community based off a specific subject or
And just
type of
the
pop
offloading
culture,
of
whatever it
forums
is.
onto another place that you don't have to deal with. You can even distance yourselves from your own group of fans, you know what I mean, because it's on a different platform that you just kind of visit, if you're feeling like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like, I just always found those conversations interesting because it is like a weird nostalgia, but for something I've never experienced, which there is a word for that. I've keep forgetting what it is, but I've looked it up many times, because I've always found like things from the 90s very uh, uh, nostalgic, but it's not something I've experienced. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I don't remember
absolutely.
doing
Well,
this.
and
I
also
didn't go
like it
see
depends on
Jurassic Park
who's
opening night, but
telling it to
like,
you too. Someone can
yeah.
relate their nostalgia to you, and if they do it well, if they, speak with the truth and they
Mm,
relate it to you, like you feel it. Even if you don't like agree or whatever, but you feel it for sure. And yeah, like it's always like your parents' generation or like 10 years before you were born, like that's why fashion is 20 years late. Music styles, change 20 years, like that type of stuff. Um,
yeah.
but
But
the early
so
days,
yeah,
because yeah, I have
yes, I
nostalgia
was
for early
gonna.
internet that's before we were on, but like it comes from hearing people talk about it that I'm like, that's cool, you know? Why don't we start there? Like when we were young and
Yeah.
we saw this stuff, we saw what we thought was cool, and that's what gets you into it. Like
I was
younger
gonna
kids
say, do you have
now
like a
look at that
first
stuff.
memory, or like that you can think of, or loosely a first memory
I
of
do,
like going
for
online?
sure,
Like,
for
I'm
sure.
not just using a computer, but just like I searched something, or like I'm looking to, like, what did you discover, I guess? Like going back
Absolutely.
to, like I say, the golden age of the internet, which is what it was marketed as, I'll say. Like, we even when we did our stream on the video game things, like, I know we didn't come up on there, but I've seen a lot of ads of like back then how they had to advertise the concept of the internet, where they had to make it seem like it was magic, because it kind of
Yeah.
was. And now they don't market it as that. Like, it's more of just like, what, how much data can you get,
Sure,
So,
sure, sure. Because
but
people,
yeah,
it's a
if you want
known
to.
quantity at that point. Yeah. So like, I was one of those. I, I definitely was taught, the computers and the computers. Like we're of a generation where like there was computer class. Like I remember third grade,
Right.
one of the classes like art or PE, one of them was computer lab. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's a dying thing because for the most part, in your modern age, you're accessing computing is the internet for 90% of people, at least in countries like ours. And that is accessed through phones and tablets and not computers. Like people, I'm not going to delve into the subject, but people don't know how to pirate shit anymore. Like they don't know. Like they'll go on live, stream, like illegal streaming sites, but they don't know how to take that. You know what I mean? Where that was like an art back, way back in the day. But I've had that stuff. But I was never really exploring on the internet besides playing like RuneScape and shit. And briefly into
Right.
Neopets and
Like, that
Club
was my
Penguin even.
first online, like, MMO,
Oh, absolutely. It was
like
a
you're the one
whole
who
world.
I used your alt account, and like I didn't know that like you could play games with other people at that point,
Yeah,
really.
it
Like,
was magical and an experience that we'll never get again, ever, just because of the way it was at the time. Like, there, like now you play a game like that, and all the information on what you need to do is known. So like it just becomes a checklist. It doesn't feel like exploring anymore. But anyway, yeah, there was RuneScape, but I was never really like into like online communities and stuff until 2009. And I know this. It was March of 2009 that I started to look online for things, and I found IGN. And I remember I could probably even find the day, because on the front page um of their, because they had the carousel at the top of like the top stories, and
I remember that. Yeah.
the main one, I don't even know what they have now because I haven't been on IGN in years, because it's just different from what I remember, and my needs have changed. Needs. Um, Top story was an announcement of a new Zelda game for the DS, Spirit Tracks. It was announced at GDC, which is a very weird thing to announce. You don't announce video games at GDC. It feels almost like weird, but Nintendo barely attended GDC, and so they allowed them to announce a Zelda game. And that was when I discovered, like, oh, there are people talking about video games and stuff. Like, I'd definitely seen the magazines and whatnot, like Game Informer and Edge, but never really realized that was like, oh, there are people out there talking about video games. So there was that. But then really, I was a spoiled bitch. I almost said brat. It's the same. I hate the whole brat summer stuff, so I'm gonna say spoiled bitch. Um, by the time this comes out, brat summer might be a fad that's gone for all I
See, that's
know.
it. Hey, and that's part of our conversation, though.
Yes, that
With
is. It
like,
is.
yeah, so it ties in.
I was a spoiled bitch who, in the year 2008, I got an iPhone, an iPhone 3G. Right, it was a hand me down. That's my
That was like one of
like.
the.
I'm not
Is that
that
iPhone?
Gucci.
Is that iPhone 3G, as in terms of like 5G, 4G?
Yes,
Like, are you
it's the
saying
second
that? Not like the
iPhone.
third. Okay, I was gonna
The
ask.
third
Yeah.
iPhone was the iPhone 3GS, and then there was iPhone 4, then the 4S, 5, 5S, 6, 6S. Um, so I had that, and so like in 2009, I discovered that podcasts were a thing, and I was like, what are my interests? And I would just search in podcasts, Kingdom Hearts. I found a podcast right away. I talked about this a year ago because I went back. I found a podcast called Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy Union. Kingdom Hearts Union was a podcast. Final Fantasy Union was another podcast. But just like us and the Chronicles of Diesel, That's on the same feed, probably because hosting is expensive. Probably more so back then, right?
Oh
Be able
yeah,
to just
even
keep it
more
on one
so.
feed. So it's 2 podcasts,
Or you
different
had to do it
for the most
yourself.
part.
You had to make your own
Oh,
RSS feed and server or whatever.
and that's
Maybe
something I don't even know, but I'm sure that that's a lost art. And listening, like, I'm cool. I'm listening to people talk about games, and I kind of realized I don't think these people are that much older than me. I think they are in college, and definitely now listening back, oh, these were young kids, um, older than 14-year-old me at the time, but still
but
young,
like
like younger than us
20,
now for sure.
like yeah.
And I recently went back at the beginning of last year. Yes, this was before Final Fantasy 16 came out, so it was the beginning of last year, and just happened to be like to find them right after they did their last episode. Because they're a YouTube channel now and stuff like that. And guess what? Those 2 adults, they grew up, got married, they have kids. The 2 of them together did that. It was a boy and a girl. I don't even remember their names, and I'm sorry. And they're out there. They're still out there. And it just had this weird thing because I remember at the time listening to them talk about Final Fantasy 13, and I'm like, I was a big Kingdom Hearts fan. I loved Final Fantasy 10. I didn't again about the Zelda thing. I didn't know that games were announced. Like the games just come out, and that's how I knew about them. So I discovered like, oh my god, like I can learn about this stuff ahead of time. So I know there was a 13 on the way, and I got really excited for that game, and that's a pretty important game for me, 13 in particular. They're talking about all this stuff, and it's just funny how people change because you know listening to their final episode of Final Fantasy Union in beginning of 2023, them talking
Damn, they
about a
did a long run,
trailer.
huh?
Yeah, well, it was this was the point where it was like every other month there's an episode, that type of stuff. Like
Okay.
it's
But
on. It's
still there's
just
an
the
effort.
pulses being hit. Absolutely. And they're talking about a trailer for 16, and the one of the woman host of the 2, the mom, complaining about how Final Fantasy has swearing in it now, as if it didn't before, because Barrett swore like a sailor in Final Fantasy 7, but it wasn't voice acted at the time, so I guess that's fine. But she's saying like, my point is like people change, perspective change. I'm like, oh, these 2 aren't the same people as when I was 14, half my life ago. That type of stuff. They're different people and they've grown. But that was like my early type of era of like, I'm just going to Google stuff. I Googled or searched Zelda on iTunes and found a bad podcast. I don't even remember what it was about necessarily, but it seemed less like they were talking about Zelda games and more about like their forums that they had. And I'm like, oh, this is just
Mm.
drama they're talking about, where they had a Zelda community. This is
Damn.
dumb.
So they did the ninja. Says like all about drama now, and I slightly disagree
There
with
was
him.
drama
I think
back
there's
then.
always been drama as long as humans have existed.
My
There's been
perspective on that ninja thing is him realizing he's old, and it's the whole, we've said this many times, like back in when I was a kid everything was so simple. Yeah, because you were 8 and you didn't know anything about the world, but it
right.
was complicated back then too. It feels less complicated because you were a child. That's kind of
Yeah.
my perspective. I don't want to delve too
Yeah.
deep onto him because I think he's right on that thing, but like, it was simpler back then when I was 19 starting to stream. It
And
wasn't.
doing PUBG.
Right.
And whatnot. But he does mention that clip, like, I missed the PUBG highlight days, bro. And like, yeah, it probably was simpler where people were just sharing funny clips. Even though at that time the other
And
PUBG
access
highlight
to
was
being able to do that was more expensive.
PewDiePie. But yeah,
Well,
access to
Um,
doing that, and like you said,
to cap off
but
my
we'll get into that in terms of
Yeah.
access, because I think that's the biggest part of this conversation
for sure,
is access. So
Absolutely. I want to get to you, but I want to cap off my early days then by saying, I then discovered that IGN also did podcasts. They did a PlayStation podcast, and I was, big in PS3 at the time. The Wii was starting to seem like, man, like I like the Marios. I do like the Marios and stuff, but like, man, that Uncharted's pretty cool. And like this is where the adult stuff. Hey, Final Fantasy 13 is a PlayStation 3 game, just like Final Fantasy 10 was for me on PS2. And Kingdom Hearts, PlayStation might be my thing, and I'm getting that. I'm listening to Greg Miller. Early days. Greg Miller is probably younger then than we are now, which is strange to me to
Yeah, that
think
would make
about.
sense.
Because I think
Yeah.
I remember when he turned 30, and I'm pretty sure it was at Kind of Funny. Maybe I'm wrong. Like after they left IGN, which would have been 2013, after the PS4 launch.
I was gonna say he's in his
Shortly after that.
40s. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Offhand.
for sure. That's gonna be us one day. And like, oh, cool. Like I'm listening to stuff, and I learned what Demon Souls was because of that, and I'm like all this cool stuff, and then discovering the GameSpy debriefings, and like, oh, there's this funny guy. Yes, well, that's a comedy button.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I'm like, oh man, these guys are funny, and like legitimately, my sense of humor comes from Brian Altano, more so specifically than any of the other ones in there. And I know, like, back, like he's a changed person too. He's definitely more positive and friendly. There was a mean-spiritedness to it, which is what I found very funny back then. But I don't think he was a bad person or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But people change. They get older. They grow up. They get kids. You know what I mean? Their outlooks on life, or they change. And seeing old heads grow, is interesting. Around that time too would have been around the time Giant Bomb was coming into form, and to me that style, they were live streaming, man, before Twitch. Like that was the thing. You would go on if you had a membership, because they were a review site as well, and stuff. But you got to watch their live streams, and like it was just the format of like, hey, there's 70% of the rectangle that you watch on your computer is the game or whatever, and then they just have a couple cameras just to catch the room. You know what I mean? A zoomed in one for the vertical, and then the bottom is like the heads of everyone on the couch, and just shooting the shit and talking while they're playing, doing a quick look on a video game, or I still go back to the Mario Party Party series and watch those maybe once every 6 months. You know what I mean? Like awesome times, and that's such a different scope than how that stuff works today. You know what I mean? We're like, especially in this we'll talk about it too, post start of the pandemic, where like now all this stuff is figured out. We know how to do this. Like you guys are watching this right now on YouTube in a way that you've seen a lot of other people do it. Our aesthetic might be different, but it's still the same format. We're talking on Discord to each other through Streamlabs.
It definitely
and it's
expedited
edited in Premiere.
It definitely expedited like tools that were there, but like fleshed them out more in a much rapid pace. Things like Zoom wouldn't be popular if it wasn't for the pandemic. You know what I mean?
There
Just
was
in terms
a
of
need, and the
by
internet
businesses
evolved,
and whatnot,
which is so strange. Like a virus, the internet evolved due to a virus as well. So I'll just cap off and say like my what I deemed as cool on the internet was people 10, 15 years older than me. I realize now they're actually maybe just a little over 10 years older than me. When they were our age or younger even, going through the traditional video game, like I don't want to say journalism, but review outlet stuff.
I mean,
it's the other
culture
stuff
of it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I see Greg Miller has this review on this game. I only care about that because I listened to him talk about stuff on Podcast Beyond on IGN. Oh, cool. Jeff Gersman's review of this, blah, blah, blah. I've seen him on camera. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, and even still now, it is that older crowd that I still shoot for, of like, these are the people that, I don't want to say that matter to me, but these are the people I seek out. Like, and it's the classic thing of like when you're marketing to kids don't want to see themselves. They want to see someone just a little bit older than themselves. And I guess that's the way it is still now as adults. We're like, I look at some of these older people. Yes, I've watched them when I was a teenager and have grown up seeing them. But like that to me is a different era than the streaming stuff now. For better or for worse, it's just different entire like markets almost. And like that's what I would like to become, if that makes sense. Whether that will ever happen, I don't know. But like that's where I came from.
And I
That's
think
what
the
I
other thing
see.
is that era too is the reason it's an era, right? Is that like
Because it's over.
it's over because maybe an access thing, like I think we're leaning more into that as we kind of go through this conversation. But just yeah, also technology has vastly changed to increase that access to be able to watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast, make a podcast, start up a live stream, whatever it is.
Yeah. You press
Things like cell
play
phones
and you're live.
are still
Yeah.
like people don't. I think a lot of people think of streaming as you're sitting on the computer and stuff, but there's people who do live stream just exclusively on their phones and stuff, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something crazy that if you told me would be a thing in 2010, I'd be like, what? I can stream
That
on my
would be
track
an
phone.
awesome dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You had a similar but different experience that I'm sure our audience is also dying to hear, as they're like, who the hell are these old people?
Yeah. These 50-year-olds.
What's
No,
an
yeah.
IGN?
So like,
What's a machinima?
yeah, we both. What's a machinima? But yeah, so like, I think my first real memory of the internet was, or one of them. I wouldn't say it's the first one, but probably one of them. Is like askjeeves.com. Like that blew my mind.
Yeah,
as like as a 7-year-old, I'm like, wait, I can ask it anything, not knowing it's pretty much just Google. Like I knew
Right,
what
it's a
Google
search
was at that
engine.
point, but I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm asking the computer. Like it's answering
Yeah.
a question. I remember me and my
now we have a
cousins
scary theft version of that.
yeah. But I remember me and my cousins would like, ask it dumb questions, just to see if it would answer them, not realizing it's more of a search engine.
I do remember Googling Zelda and being like, there's pictures of old people, old women, because their name is Zelda, and Google is just like,
well,
finding...
I will share this story. It used to embarrass me, but I've realized I'm sure other people have had similar experiences. So maybe me sharing this will make people feel better. Hopefully, I don't really care anymore. Because it wasn't like I actively tried to do this, and it's part of the story. So I remember I had a Godzilla game on my Game Boy SP, or no, Advance. It was a Advance cartridge, and I remember I had the purple Advanced, and I had a Godzilla game, and I think it was one of those games that was loosely translated English and ported here, and probably didn't sell very much, but since I loved Godzilla as a kid and still do, my parents got me that one, and
Nice.
I remember playing it and like beating it, but I remember like this is the era too where like cheat codes were like a guaranteed almost thing in most games, like some sort of Easter egg thing, or you unlock an extra character, and I'm like,
I was definitely Googling for cheats for games back then.
And I remember looking up the Godzilla cheat code because I was like, oh, maybe there's another character I can unlock. Maybe I can actually be Mecha King Ghidorah instead of he's just a boss at the end of the game.
Because he's in there. Yeah.
He's in there. Maybe I can play as him. And so I Googled that, and for whatever reason, there was only like 2 sites that popped up, which is crazy now. I feel like you couldn't search for anything unless you're really adding a lot of words to only have 2 sites pop up on Google. But yeah, 2 sites popped up, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's not many people playing this game or whatever. Because on this computer, I used to look up Godzilla stuff, like you said. I'd just search, like you did with podcasts. I would just search things I'm interested in. I'd be like, Godzilla, because that was really all I was interested in at that point, was just Godzilla and whatever else, things kids look up, dinosaurs, whatever. But yeah, I look up Godzilla, and I clicked on a site, and immediately there was just a million pop-up ads of like women trying to strip and stuff, like don't click on this or else I show my breasts, and I'm like maybe 7, you know what I mean? So I was just like, immediately I go into like, I don't know what's going on, I'm really like scared, like I thought I knew I broke it. Yeah, and I remember like crying to my mom, and like my mom did kind of chew me out, but I get it. It's like a classic mother instinct. Like, what are you doing on the computer? Why are you looking up porn or whatever? Even though I didn't know what that was, like as a concept, I wasn't even thinking about it. I didn't even know what was going on. I was just like, I don't think I'm supposed to see this. Like, you know what I mean? And or I
the
also broke
concept
it.
of people wear clothes for a couple reasons, and modesty is one of them.
Yeah. So it was a whole thing. We eventually figured it out, but like that loosely started my restrictions on internet because I think it was lack
Oh
of
no.
uh not then, it was still like a couple years later. But I think my mom, my parents in general, just wanted to protect me from, you know, more so I think just making mistakes rather than me being malicious or like trying to do something. Uh, but this still, once
Okay.
again, this is an era where the internet wasn't like, not everyone had access to it. This is 2003. I remember looking on that computer, uh, uh, playing games or watching videos about like George Bush. Uh, I remember finding a cartoon about George Bush that was like 3 minutes that someone made, and I found it online. I remember showing my mom. And my mom found it funny or whatever. I remember really distinctively him holding up a a bill, like a little like bill, and he wrote on it "No gay marriage" and being like, haha. This is me at like 8, dude.
Sure.
But hey, that's what he said, no
That
gay
was him
marriage.
yesterday.
But I just want to point out that memory because I'm sure I'm not the only one who accidentally fell into a porn bot. This back when there was 50 pop-ups that would pop up on your screen literally and like just destroy your computer until you got to restart it. This was also still dial-up days too, by the way.
Right, where your computer screamed at you when you turned on Internet Explorer. Yeah. I had Net Zero. We had Net Zero.
I think we had Roadrunner. That's why I used to have an old Roadrunner email address. Rochester.rr.com.
I think they are now getting rid of those emails because my grandpa.
I'm sure, I don't even remember the password.
Help him set up a Gmail for that Rochester.rr.com. Yeah.
But anyways, so we'll progress quickly here to the next like couple of years. Then I started just going online more, and then eventually my mom did like have a password lock. So if I went on a new site, I had to ask for her password. But she still gave me access to like YouTube, addictinggames.com. I was really active on the Ravens forums, and I really hope all those forum posts are gone because I was like fucking 10, probably saying cringy ass shit. That was also the time when I started learning how to use Photoshop so I can make my own. On like forums, you can have little the
photo banner at the
signatures, a banner signature, yeah. And yeah, so I would just make that kind of shit, and it's probably all embarrassing right now. Because I was once again 10, talking to probably people who were in their 30s about the Ravens, and would be mad when they would shit on players or whatever. Yeah, so I did that for a while, and then around that time is when we talked about, I think on the Nuzlocke last Nuzlocke Run episode. Well, it might be another one by this point.
Probably
but
a couple
one of those,
at this point.
One of those episodes we mentioned,
episode
Can
5.
of Nothing. Yeah, episode 5, Can of Nothing, which was like a website that had YouTube videos, or at least embedded videos into like a blog kind of structure.
Yeah.
The website's still up right now. You can go on camnothing.com. It doesn't
a little broken,
perfectly work. It's a little broken, but you would get the idea. That banner you see at the top was pretty close to what it was back in 2006 or whenever we were, on there. And I remember finding, just funny videos, and I watched everything on that channel. I would argue that was my first channel I was subscribed to in a manual way. I would check it every day, every week, just to see if they uploaded a new video. And I watched almost all of them. I know I showed you some of them and you enjoyed them.
Right. You definitely watched. I watched the first Pokemon one, and that was really it for the most part, besides stuff that you had shown me. As you talk, you're unlocking memories in my head of sites I also went to as a kid. I was on the Lego website forever because you got to make your own user page where it was made out of Lego stuff. And actually, I think maybe even before IGN, my daily site that I went to was Cerebi.net, the Pokemon fan site.
Yes,
because I would just see news.
That one too.
Yeah.
I had an account on the Star Wars.
We used that for
site.
our Nuzlocke run. That's how I find the information on because those were the pages I was going on as a kid. Those haven't changed. Yeah.
Yeah, but once I got into more interests like Star Wars and stuff, I had a Star Wars account for a while and was really into Star Wars lore, which is crazy to say because now I'm I don't care two shits about who
Same.
Darth Sidious is.
Not
And I don't
funny
need a
anymore.
whole show backstory to tell me about it. But at the time, I was interested in that, and then still Godzilla and all that stuff. And at this time too, I was getting more into video games, and like I had Game Informer magazine, and like, so yeah, I was still looking up cheats and like whatnot. And I think that's how if we go to like 20, so I kept that kind of level of. I would go online to look at videos. I used to watch all the Ravens stuff on there, and when they didn't have YouTube yet and all that.
Ravens football for those that might not
Yeah,
have
sorry,
caught on.
Baltimore Ravens. In sports in general, like I used to watch the game by just watching a graph telling me like what happened, like basically like a play-by-play text
Kind
of
of
what
like
happened
when
in the
people
game.
listen to radio
Yeah,
broadcasts
yeah.
of sports.
So, but anyways, around like 2011 when Skyrim came out, correct?
2011.
This is where I first got into like, oh, YouTube is like not just a place for funny clips, because my cousins or whoever would show me, oh my god, shoes video, like any of the videos you can think of from that era that were big. I watched them, but I wasn't going on YouTube on the regular to go watch stuff. And I know a lot of people were like that as well. YouTube was just kind of like the just the like random videos that you just shit post on, and like Can of Nothing had some videos on there, but like there wasn't a subscribe concept or like a goal of building up subscriptions and views. There wasn't monetization, anything like that. I remember there was back when you can add annotations to other people's videos. Remember that, where you could add like bubbles, like literally speech bubbles that would appear in videos, and people would just add to videos. I remember that being a kind of a trend. But anyways, now it's 2011 and Skyrim's out, and of course I like Skyrim. I'm playing it, and I looked up Skyrim on YouTube, and that's how I found a YouTuber named Robaz, who from Sweden. He still does stuff on Twitch like 4 times a week, and he does his thing. And I remember watching his video where he, at this point I was like, wait, you can record, like I knew that like people could record games, but I didn't know people were doing commentary over games, and he was doing like comedic like bits and stuff like that. So it was around 2011 I started watching all his stuff, and he started off as just a dude uploading like all the Mortal Kombat fatalities. Like he would just he had a capture card, and he was one of the first. That's how I think his channel even got views in the first place, was that he was one of the first people to be like, oh, here's Mortal Kombat 9s or whatever game was out at the time. Here's all the fatalities in order. And it's a 30-minute video. Like if you go to I don't know if that's still public, but all his early videos were that. And then I think he started doing the comedic videos and whatnot. And so that was my first time like following him. I don't know if there was a subscribe button at that point yet. Maybe there was. Don't really remember. And then it was another YouTuber at this time I found was All Sham No Wow, who is still one of my favorites. One of my influences, I guess. You're talking about, Greg Miller and whatnot being kind of like influences or something. Oh, that'd be cool if I could do that. He was another one where at the time, like he kind of was doing Dead Rising games. I didn't
based off an infomercial that has long since been forgotten.
Yeah. And he's he's had loose attachments to like Machinima. Like in 2015, he did a lot of videos with Machinima people, like in that circle. That's how I eventually learned about Machinima, was through him and whatnot. And I think even David, our friend of the show, David,
he's not my friend.
He showed me Machinima Inbox, which wasn't even gaming. It was Mr. Sark and APL Fisher opening fan mail that was sent to the Machinima office, and they would just riff off of that. And then I realized, they're connected to All Sham. No, I realized there was kind of a loose family of these Let's Players. And that's how I discovered Machinima. But how I found All Sham No, by the way, was back when I think it was around closer to, I think we went to David's camp, and our goal was to watch a lot of horror movies, and our big thing that we were binging was Saw. And I was trying to look up Saw videos because I'm a freak. And I was looking up Saw on YouTube, and All Sham No did a Let's Play, and it's still probably one of his biggest videos. He did a Let's Play of the Saw video game, a game that like no one was playing. It wasn't a good game or whatever. And he played that, and like to this day, he still gets comments. Oh, I remember watching your Saw gameplay or whatever from 2011, 2012. So it's just me searching things, like you said, just searching interests and finding things, finding rabbit holes, right, of these creators. But yeah, got into machinima, and at this time, I've started to get into doing our own kind of let's play kind of concept, because that's what other people were doing, and I saw other people I liked doing, and I'm like, I think we could do that. Granted, I think we were still a little too young for it, but I fucking tried, and I didn't overthink it, and I just did it, and I don't regret doing it. Of course, all those videos are long privated,
for good
but
reason.
For good reason mostly. I mean, there's still, I've once in a while go down there and into the basements and the vaults and watch some stuff, but yeah, that was almost 13 years ago, 10 years ago. I feel like was doing that kind of regularly. This is before I knew that streaming was a thing, because I heard of Justin TV, but I didn't understand that. And then Twitch,
same.
I think it was Twitch Plays Pokemon that you recommended, that you showed me that there's a platform called Twitch. And then that's how I got into Twitch.
I remember Twitch Plays Pokemon. That was 2013, 2014.
Yeah. So all this is like building up, as you can see, of like, oh, there's this whole other thing online. Then Google Hangouts is the thing. That's how we communicated. And I've always been into like video creation. I used to shoot. I'm sure you remember, sometimes I had a camcorder and I would edit videos on iMovie. Always self-taught myself that. To this day, that is still an interest of mine. I like making things and producing things. And I think just seeing other people do it in a way I didn't think of was interesting. So for a while, I wanted to do Gmod videos like everyone else was doing, especially in that machinima era. Everyone was doing that, or in Black Ops. But I'm like, I don't have a capture card, but I can figure out a way to do it on my MacBook and figure it out. But yeah, and then ever since then, I've been doing my fair share of Twitch, like a lot of people have, and this, like a lot of people have, and I appreciate what it's given me, in a way of. But at the same time, what scares me is like, man, there's just so much shit out there, and I'm worried about like kids who don't realize the power of the internet, of keeping things for so long. That, and going to Ninja's point, not cancel culture, like I said, I don't like using that word, but just like, you said this in 10 years ago,
right,
and it was bad, and like, I hope though, with that keeping around, that I hope people will at least have more flexibility, or like grace with people being like, yeah, we all were 16 once and said really dumb shit.
Eventually, all of the old people in politics will be dead, and younger generations will take their place, and everything ages like that, and everyone will have done that, whether it be on a forum post, a Discord nowadays, a social media post, said something that can be found. I do see people having more, I don't even want to use the word empathy, but yeah, more flexibility to be like, private life and professional life are different. I almost, like, at least before you became professional,
but even then, it's like, of like, yeah, there's stupid shit that I said probably even 5 years ago, but I think it's always, are you growing, right? That's the maturity thing we talked about kind of the beginning, is like, I will give someone a pass generally, almost on almost anything, not everything, but a lot of things, depending on how they've matured and how are they talking about that thing, that maybe if someone does bring it up and be like, yeah, that was a shitty thing to say, shouldn't have said it, I don't say that shit now.
And then how
I
many people probably cuss out when they said this now, and yeah, that's the tough part.
And that goes to the Ninja's comment where, like, the clipping, people will sit in streams. I know Hassan, right, one of the biggest political streamers, and he's doing sensitive topics. For example, one of his biggest blunders was, quote, big quote, where even it got into national news, not nationals, but like big news, where people are like, oh, the youth are watching this guy, or the younger people are watching this guy, and he said America deserved 9/11, and like someone clipped just that, and they show that, and that's what people point to, you know what I mean? Or things like Israel, where he's always been pro-Palestine, but back in 2015, and he has in a way that's benefited them, because like, no, you can watch that video, I was always right about this. So like I think there's that one benefit when you're doing stuff like that where it's like, oh, I can point to something, but there is people just, for once you get that big, right, you have people like who, I don't get why, just sit there all day, which to me is just brain rot, right? It's like, that's what I'm afraid of. Like, will there be more of this internet brain rot, and just
Right.
once again, the access is so easy. The Twitch app is on your PlayStation. You can get the Twitch app on your phone. You can just pop it in your web browser, whatever. I'm afraid that like that shit will only be worse. And I just hope that as a general populace, that like you said, there will be like more flexibility. Be like, nope, yeah, they did say that was kind of shitty, but we're okay now. But my fear is too is that we've seen it though on the end for people who actually do deserve like to get shit on. A Doctor Disrespect, for an example, who
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
pointed
Yeah.
out years ago, being like, I don't think this guy is good. And more shit comes out, more shit comes out, more shit comes out. And then there's still the people, like I said, brain rot, hive mind, that be like, no, this my parasocial relationship that I have with this person, he can't betray me. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll say like, yeah, I guess that's all I'll say on that. But it's just
And
like,
actually, to that point too, and it actually kind of goes back again to something I've said. People will watch, someone, and like the ninja thing is a good example. For years, like people grow up, watching the same people. I have, right? Um, and you definitely, as you grow older, start to realize that like you are losing things. Things are changing and they're never going to be the way they were, let alone in a world where you're watching someone commodify their life on camera and their interests and whatnot, and stuff like that changes. And oh, why can't this go back to the way it was, and why are you changing stuff? And it's like your perspective is different because you're older now. I bet I could go back to like those early GameSpot briefings episodes that I like cherish in my mind as being really really funny and like and important to me, and be like, oh, like I could probably do that, right? And it's not
yeah,
as good as I remember, but like you're comparing that stuff. So then yeah, like there are people that like will like hate watch a streamer that they used to love because like they did something that changed, like that parasocial relationship where like some people just don't grow up, which is weird. Some people grow old, but some people don't grow up.
yeah. And I think that's
um
the problem with the internet, is those types of people can be given almost more, not power, I don't want to use that word, but just like uh more
Attention.
attention, because those people, like you said, who don't grow up, have always existed. You know what I mean? Like that hasn't. There's people you can point to almost, I'm sure, anywhere in time, and there's, as long as humans have existed there, there's been someone who doesn't mature, or gets really stubborn, stuck in their ways, and not in a good way. And like that was just, you didn't hear about it. Maybe the local town did. Maybe people in the town
Sure.
know. Don't bother so and so. He's always like that. But now with the
Education is
internet,
more
it's
than just
like,
what you learn in school. It's experiences. It's emotional education. Is
yeah,
often not often. I don't know what I'm pulling that out of my ass for, but like that's all. That's also like important. Just like I would literally say this is weird to say and self-serving as hell to say, but I feel like you and I and the kind of the people that we kind of cultivate around us are educated more in a manner that a lot of other people online might not be, because we do care about things and we do like look up information and we think about the context of things, and that isn't like necessarily something that everyone has, because not everyone
yeah,
cares, you know what I mean, to
that's the
want
other thing.
to,
Yeah,
you know. I was at work, today is the day we're recording, what does that doesn't matter. And there's a lot of like really 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 ignorant political talk on just this group of people at the table in this break room. And I'm like listening, I'm having to fill out some form at one table as I'm hearing these people talk, and I'm like, these people are so ignorant. It's like they don't care, they just want to speak, you know. And one of my insecurities is trying not to be that type of person. Obviously, I don't think I am, but you're climbing a ladder and the slide is below you. You know what I mean? You can always fall off.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Just going back to what
But
you're saying, that
but the
like
internet
it's a maturity
will
thing.
sometimes potentially, either give that people more attention than they would ever get in any other situation, or they make freaking grifting careers right out of it. And that's
Oh,
like my fear is, with so much money in it, like
and hate. There's a lot
in
of
hate,
money in
in
hate.
the in the commodifying of things like YouTube and Twitch. And that's where I think I have some empathy, I guess, for Ninja. Like, as long as I know he's had his fair share of blunders, and I've dunked on him myself. When it comes to like the how does a football kicker miss a field goal? Like whatever, like they're
My
professional.
braless wife gave me a sandwich.
Yeah,
Like,
just like,
okay,
and like, but at the
you
end of
have
the
a
day, it's like I have
partner.
no,
Like,
I don't know the guy, but I also don't have any harsh opinions on him. He's just a dude on the internet, like everyone, like what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? Like, but
it's
I
the
want to
same
point
thing
out,
about
but I want to point out,
Markiplier too. Or like, as a normal person, that it's been fun to make fun of just because you find him weird. But that's not.
yeah.
We've
But
realized
if
there
I
are
saw
people
him,
that
but
deserve
honestly, if
it
I
way
saw him
more.
at the Trader Joe's, I'd be like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
you're Markiplier.
You know,
That's
I
cool.
learned the other day, and I had someone recently, with the past few months, just bring up this term and in casual conversation, was like bewildered. This person like a few years younger than us, bewildered that I didn't know what it was. But this seems like the perspective is more of a going on Tumblr and the fandoms and stuff. I don't really care about that stuff, but the term lolcow, like, oh, this person's a lolcow, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. The person
I
was
don't
like,
know
they
what that is.
didn't believe me. They thought I was joking because I'm a pretty sarcastic guy. And like I play everything up for laughs. But I'm like, no, I don't know what that means. And then I didn't ever actually really explained it pretty well. But then I was watching. So there was a YouTube video, very very beautifully done, but it's self-servingly up its own ass in pretension, almost on purpose. That was a folding ideas video. Dan Olson, the pretty big video essayist type YouTuber. You watched it, about the angry video game nerd. The video is called "I Don't Know James Rolfe." And I've watched it a couple times now, and I really like it. I'm a big video essay type of person. I am still trying to finish a script for a small one I want to put up on our YouTube channel.
Let's go. Let's go.
It's tough to commit to the things in your head in words, I found, because I could easily talk into a camera my ideas, and but putting them down
And
on
making like a
Word
script,
and
yeah,
something
can
to
be,
read out that is a
yeah.
formal thing of my thought is really tough. But anyway, I'm big into this stuff, and there's a lot of people that I like. I know we've talked about H Bomber guy is a pretty big influence, I would say, on us. But there's a few others, but there's the ones I don't know, right, that I have never seen. And this one guy, and I don't even remember who he was, and it's fine because I didn't really care for him. Had a response video on that one, and he brings up this lol cow thing, and he seemed to be on a it's all in good fun, it's fine, but essentially what it is, oh, there's a person being cringe on the internet, let's all make fun of them with our content. It's the first time actually bringing up that word in this episode, by the way. Content. We made it an hour in. We haven't mentioned
I
content
think I
yet.
might have said it at the beginning,
I didn't
unfortunately.
acknowledge that until now. And that's what it is, because like in the early days, and I guess I was never one for like the drama type of YouTube and stuff. I actually kind of
Not
found
really,
like the
me either.
leafy stuff mean. I know David was into that. Like the
I
drama
had my
YouTube stuff is
phase into that, but
annoying,
then I always felt it
and like
started to
not,
turn into
it felt,
bullying, just online
yes, in
bullying
a way where
for
like I don't feel
money,
comfortable.
like, and
But
they were
yeah, people
monetizing that
people make
stuff
fun
too.
of
Like, that's what made it
people
worse.
online on YouTube videos and stuff, and that was like a trend, and now it's a TikTok type of thing. It's a different type of thing altogether. But yeah, I mean, like, there's different facets of the internet altogether that even us, our experiences we're saying out now, like, they overlap to a degree. But there's stuff that you said that I never really was into. I was never into the let's play type of person. I was never into that stuff. And I had my pretensions about like, oh, those people aren't as important as the people who got paid to review video games, which I guess at that time I actually do kind of think might be true because like, those people are older and a little bit more wise, I guess maybe. But that's it. That's not like a
Yeah.
um, my point, But like we have these. There's a whole bunch of swaths of the internet from before, during, and after what we're describing as our era of growing up that like missed us, you know what I mean? That have their own little communities. I'm not sure how to tie this back into whatever
Well, I
the
was gonna
initial
say, I
point
think
was, but
the main, I feel like for me, like this main topic kind of was like my thinking of like we kind of talk about like was the golden age of internet, has it ended? If it did, when did it end? Are we maybe just like you said getting older, or is it a combination of both? And that's what I've been kind of like pondering, like honestly, the last like 6 months. I feel like because I feel like we keep talking about it. That's why I wanted to do this episode because I feel like it might help me process it, and maybe there's someone else out there who maybe just been thinking about it. Not that I need a resolution. It's not like keeping me up at night like, oh my fucking god, the internet. It's more of just like this is an interesting time I feel like we're in. And like how would I describe if I have a kid one day and they ask me like what was the internet like how do I describe that to them, you know what I mean, like how and what will the internet even be like for them? And I've always had the question to myself is like, okay, I have a kid, I know tablets are a big thing right now, and I'm going to sound like a boomer like my parents did about staring at the television too long, but it's just like there's too much dopamine in those fucking things. Don't get addicted to them now. Like when you're adult,
people
at least
are
you
get
you
addicted
can
to
you can
dopamine
know
just
the
in
risk.
general. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Where like there's a different level of, and I know you're not really on social media, but since I do it with my job, I know how fucking poison this shit is because I literally can tell you the physical differences it gives me when I'm going camping and my phone has no service. Like just there's an energy level that is different. Like, yes, I get a high knowing is Joe Biden going to fucking drop out because it's my fucking vice. That's my heroin slow dripping into my bloodstream. But at the same time, there is a sense of relief and a nostalgia, like Ninja's talking about. He has a nostalgia for PUBG, Fortnite days where things were probably simpler, where, yeah, he got maybe some money from it, but maybe he didn't need brand deals. He just played the game and was good at it, and to me, I miss the days where I'm like, we weren't so attached to these things and I didn't need to know what was happening in the world every damn second, but I'm also an adult now. So like, I don't know. I feel like I contradict myself, in that way. But then, this is what I've been processing the last 6 months. Cause I think I'm also like you talk about, we're going closer to 30. So it's like, man,
Right.
like what is,
Because once you hit
like,
30, you're no longer a kid. I've heard this like,
yeah,
oh, you're both the nephew and the uncle. That's what 30 is. But which is true. Not literally for me. No, I'm the oldest, but of like my siblings. But I have my answer to your question. I don't think there's a golden age of the internet. I think that changes with the times. The internet, as you want to go back to your quote with the David Bowie thing. The internet only gets more more connected to people. People get on. That is their online identity. We've talked about this before. A foreign concept to generations older than us, but is one that's deeply ingrained in our younger millennials and definitely Gen Z. And I think
in
Gen Alpha is too young to appreciate this. But the concept of not necessarily having inherent loyalty to America as Americans, because our identity is
interesting.
online. It's talking to people that we could assume are American. I remember being in RuneScape talking about football and not realizing they're talking about soccer. I didn't even know that's what they called it. But like there is just that like there is an inherent, I assume, as like someone that lives in my general region, but like as you get older, like no, like we're a global community. The internet has made us a global community, our generation a global community. So I don't view our country in the same way that our older generations do. And as we get, I don't know why this is beeping at me, as we get older and younger people um get into the ages that we're in, they're having their own golden era. I mentioned like the TikTok thing, but like to them, what's going to be the golden era is how anyone with a phone can make it, can be big, can be viral, can reach people, can be seen. Like I think a little bit younger than us are people that grew up where their entertainment from like memory is you use the let's play type stuff. Where like kids like maybe 7 years younger than us grow up wanting to be YouTubers because that's what they watch. We grew up, and I'm generalizing here, but you and I grew up, with Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and then the internet was another thing. But like entertainment for the most part to kids and to me now is the stuff I watch online. And
Yeah,
that
like Twitch
golden
is
era
the new
changes.
TV. The YouTube is
Right.
I think I remember I looked at a report, I think like a year or two ago, where, and this I think this has changed even more. I think every year it gets closer, like the ratio changes, where if you look at the age difference, like anyone who's like 35 and younger, pretty much like they watch YouTube 3 times a week, and then they watch television, like I'm saying like antenna or cable, pretty much non-existently, or they don't even have it.
Yeah.
Like
I'm a YouTube
YouTube
every single
is,
day. Yeah.
yeah. I'm that person. I didn't even mention Funhouse in my
I was waiting for that.
experience. Funhouse is easily the number one, like in terms of creativity, like producing things. Like they used video games as a prop rather as the focus all the time. Like they would find a way to like riff off of that, or even sometimes they're not even doing gaming at all. I've been shout out to them, rest in peace. That was weirdly enough, like I've already become to terms with like, oh, my young adult days are closing in. I've accepting it, I'm in my own way. And it's funny enough, Funhouse ending was like, you know what? In a weird way, this kind of is crazy.
Nail?
One of them. I don't think it is the final one, but just in terms of like, yeah, I watched that like in early college, like, and I've literally grown up in a certain way watching that stuff. And like, you know what? I'm glad it existed, and like I'll tell folks about it. But like that era is gone. The era of companies, hiring people to make things like that is gone, outside of the slight independence. But I can see that stuff being gone in 10, 20 years down the line there. And there's something maybe that we haven't even thought of conceptually that might exist. And it might be more of the short end content stuff. Cause like I said, pointing to social media, it's all oriented to short, like you said, viral things. How quick can I get your attention and keep
how
it?
long that will be the case.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just saying, generally speaking, there's been studies, if I'm not mistaken, like tied to social media specifically, for example. And YouTube I count as social media because there's still comments, there's still people, and they share it. You share it with people. Hey, watch this video, listen to this podcast, whatever it is. Which you should do with this, this channel.
Right.
But people's attention spans, like, just statistically are going down. I'm saying by generation. I think we're in that weird spot because we both didn't have cell phones and didn't have social media.
We remember a bit of what was before, but our lives are influenced by the early days of what it is.
Yeah, like people who are like 10 years younger than us onward. But yeah, like
I think there is no golden era because, again, the people that I'm influenced by are about 10 years or so older than me. Their golden era is older than what we're talking about. You know what I mean? And like I can relate their nostalgia, but I don't need to. You people out there can look it up, but like I can feel nostalgia for that type of stuff. All that stuff changes, and like, yeah, the future is always dark and scary. And yes, like right now, I think one of the things you brought up at the very beginning, I think almost as the main topic, so I'll bring it back up again to kind of help round out this conversation. Making on stuff online for money or the art, I would like to do it for both. But if you talk about early YouTube, it wasn't for money yet. People did it to do it. And yes, there was, social clout. And then, yes, in that 2011-ish era, when all of a sudden people realized they could do a business, I'm just generalizing here, but a lot of the the people, like the kind of bigger names from that era, have been outlived by the Mega 64s and the Angry Video Game Nerds and the people that came before them, because people from that 2011 came in to make money now. And that's kind of gone away. And so they've faded. The Fine Brothers React is gone. You know what I
And that
mean?
is,
Like all like the
I think,
Vsauce is gone, and the way
yeah,
we really think about it, like all that stuff is gone.
yeah,
But like Mega 64 is still kicking big. You know what I mean? Because they've been true to themselves the whole time. And so for
yeah.
me, what I like for us, I want us to make the things we want to make. I hate using content to describe what we do, what I do.
Yeah,
Even though
I
that
hate
is the
using the word
easiest
too,
term
because
to
it has
use,
a monetization like
it
element
has
to
a
me, and that,
uselessness to it as well.
yeah,
Content feels like popcorn. It is
we're trying to
empty
give people
calories,
snacks, and
and it
yeah,
doesn't fill you up. To me, that's what content
we
is.
use that
You know, we
in my
make a
day-to-day job too.
podcast. We
Yeah.
make a podcast. We do streams. You know, we do like live broadcasts. You know what I mean? Um, I don't want to be pretentious and say we make art or say we have work. We have a work to show people. One day I'd like to be able to look back and say I've done that. But for me, like that's I would, as I said at the beginning, what we want, because I'm bringing you into this as well. What we want is to be able to make what we want to do be what supports us. Obviously, it's what I think anyone wants to do. There are people that definitely they just want money as bad as possible. And yes, I want money as bad as possible. I want like a job that pays me well, obviously, and I don't want that to be this. You know what I mean? And there is that hope that like an audience wants what you want. But as we've mentioned before, people grow old, and if they might get not people get older, and they might not, your audience falls out, and you gain new ones because you're either doing the same thing forever because that's what you've become, or you change and people don't want what you have now, and they that whole kind of cycle. Like we have yet to see the full cycle of online creators. We have yet to see the full
And
cycle.
that was gonna be my last kind of thought in this discussion, because I think that in the Ninja clip again, which I'm citing more than I thought I would, but I think it just really like struck a chord in my brain that has been trying to think of the question I'm trying to ask, or the questions I'm trying to ask, and like I think he kind of hit on them, because I think he's in his mid 30s or close to mid 30s. Like I know he's not young, but he's not like, he's
You could have
not
told me
50
he's
or anything.
younger than us, and I would have believed you. But
I think he's in his 30s. But he mentions in there, he's like, I don't know how many years I got left doing this streaming. Like it was fun during the nostalgia days where like it was probably simpler. And he mentions like all these new streamers with their $5 webcams is like the little quote, and literal quote. And I don't think he means that in like a fully like negative way. I think he's just saying the access to this is so many that in a way does it, and I wonder this too, is like, does it actually dilute in a broad scheme of things where like anyone can do it? How do you find the good in the bad? Because I think there's a lot of good stuff out there that no one ever actually finds because of the algorithm, or wrong place, wrong time, or whatever it is, multiple of reasons. That's why I also think there's a lot of luck involved. You could be the best player and maybe you never showcase that, or there's people who are just really good at something and they get views off of that, but maybe they don't have the charisma for other things, and that's a taste thing, whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is like, there's so much access to it that there's always more and more people trying to enter the commodity, field of it all. Like any other entertainment business, like movies back in the 1910s, it was a really expensive thing to do. And that's why there was production companies,
and the
and then
train
more
was
and more
scary.
production. And the train was scary. There's more and more and more production companies over time, and now it's such a big business, right? And I've always been pretty open about my political leanings, and like I really do believe there'd be more art and better art and more freedom, in the sense of we got rid of the whole system that is trying to commodify every little thing we do in our lives, whether it's you ordering food, you taking a piss, whatever it is, that's how it seeps in. And I'm worried that like that's why I kind of look at a golden age in the sense of how things were made just for the sake of making them versus a lot of stuff now is made with the sense of what's the profit motive? How much money can I make off of this? I know
Is
people
this
who've
worth
talked to
it?
me. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people who've talked to me and friends who I love to death, but I've had friends talk to me, be like, oh, I know you do podcasting and all that stuff. And I want to do that too. And I'm like, okay, it's a lot of time commitment and work. And there's some things I regret when I was trying to do Twitch for a lot. There's times when I missed out on like social gatherings or whatever because I need to stream, even though I wasn't actually enjoying what I was doing all the time, but they would tell me and they try it maybe once or don't try it at all because they give up because they're maybe not, because most of the time they're coming from a perspective is my goal is to, I can make money playing video games. That's a lot of boomers.
Their expectation is different. That's the one thing I'm proud of for us is that like, despite, where we're at, we've been doing this for 5 years, right?
But we were doing things before.
But we've been doing like this specifically, a podcast that we haven't given up. We've taken some breaks, none longer than at that very first year, where it was a few months. But like we've taken a few weeks off. But like we've been consistent on wanting to do it and slowly improving.
And that's the thing I always pride myself on.
I feel like this whole thing has been worth it just for that alone, even though we haven't made money off of this.
And that's for me. Like my thing is always like, as long as I'm creatively satisfied, like I will do it. For me, my thing is like, if I got paid for it, that just opens the door for more flexibility to do more creative things. Or there's been, when we used to do the Warzone Awards, shout out to the OG fans, and stuff like that, where it's like, of course, if I had a fucking $1 million that I could put into it, that'd been amazing. Or like this show, like, of course, I would love a fucking green screen with a 4K camera, of course. But that's my thing is like, the only like there's access to anyone can do this, but there's also an access of equipment, but things are becoming more and more easier to, like I said, stream on your phone and whatnot. But my final question here, and he talked about this, like I need to segue back to what my main point of all of this was, or the main point of what I was talking about briefly there, is he talks about like, I don't know how many years I have left. And I'm thinking about this because like there's the people I mentioned who I watched in 2011, they're still doing Twitch. If anything, I remember when they stopped doing YouTube, they stopped spending hours editing a video, and they'd be really well-made videos. Like, that's where I got a lot of my editing style that I've done over the years has come from things like Funhouse and all the other people I mentioned, who put a lot of time, 30 hours maybe into a video, 40, 50 video essays. I know like you watch definitely aren't just something made in 10 hours. Like
it's intimidating on editing alone now, trying to make
on editing alone, not even the shoot. I'm not even including anything else. Just editing alone, the manual labor that takes. And obviously things like AI have helped people who don't have those skills, for better or for worse, make these easier, quick videos, or they're able to hire people to make it for them. Once again, the money motive I feel like starts to creep in there, where it's like I'm not even the one doing anything. I become the entertainer rather than the creator, which to me, I'd rather be the creator. But anyways, Ninja, mentioned he might not be here that long, because he's either getting burnt out or he maybe sees the writing on the wall that I can't do this forever. Even at the rate of he has 27,000 people watching him on the daily, eventually that might not be enough to put food on his table in the sense of, being able to keep doing what he's doing. And that's my thing is like, how many of these people, even the ones you mentioned who have been around for 20 years, I don't know how many of those will be around in 30 years. I don't know if they will. I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing, but I'm worried about like, okay, let's say if you're a streamer since you were 15, let's say, because there is people out there who've been online making content in their eyes for 15 years, since they were 15, let's say, and they're 30 now, and maybe the views have gone up, gone down, doesn't matter. How long can that go on for? Because, there is always the new trends, the new things happening, the new platforms. Ninja tried to leave, remember, onto Mixer for a year.
Oh,
and
right.
And that didn't really work for Mixer. It didn't, he got the payday of a couple million or whatever it was, but it did, I think, I looked at his views. he left Mixer when he was kind of already on the downslope in his average viewership, and then it's kind of stayed the same ever since he's come back. And I think that's once again, like, it's still a lot of people, probably enough to keep doing that, but like I just worry for these people who've been doing this for 20 years and don't have like, and I don't, that once again, if we're living the system of capitalism, I don't even think it's a fair thing. It's not a good way to judge people, but like job experience, these people have been doing this for so long. Like, okay, all of a sudden, let's say you just don't have an audience anymore. Like, what do you do? Like,
Well,
and especially if you aren't a video editing, you're like broadcasting isn't really like a thing that I feel like is so much easier now to do. That do people hire for that as often outside of major sports and news networks? I mean, I'm just thinking about that. That's the kind of long-term like concerns I have for the quote unquote content creator. And that's a lot of media in general. Music's the same thing. I feel like music is slowly being killed for pop billboard making things. No one wants to make like the album as much anymore, or there's no point in spending that much money. But that's a whole other conversation. But I'm saying
the album initially arose as a capitalist way to make more money. Because we can just put more music on this disc, and then we can charge more for it. So write more
that's
songs.
Fair. That's fair. But I mean, like, the things are.
But I understand, because the album is an art form that yes, is
yeah.
out of that. To answer your question, it's a couple things. I do not see online content creation akin to traditional music recording industry, filmmaking, and whatnot, because it can be anything, right? And the world changes. The internet changes. Everything evolves. There are new fads and trends, but there are new ways to do things. Podcasting, the early 2000s, rose to videos in the mid to late 2000s, went to live broadcasting on the internet with Twitch and the like, in the mid 2010s as far as popularity is concerned. And what's next? You know what I mean? Like, phones, and that type of stuff. The types of content changes. And to your ninja thing, what I think you're kind of describing is someone that wants to do one type of thing in content creation, and when that no longer services them, they fall by the wayside. To be quite honest, you adapt and survive. All that stuff that changes, you have to change with it, and people do change. When I watched that clip and he's playing Fortnite, I'm like, you're still playing that? And not from a wow, it's old or cringe. You want to still play that? Does he want to still play that? Ninja, does he want to still
that might
play
be
Fortnite?
part of. And that might be part
I
of
don't think that's the case. And I don't know anything about the man. I haven't seen anything but the couple cringe things people throw online about him every couple years or whatever. But, like, I can easily see the idea of almost what you're describing, I guess, in the music industry of, like, you have your big pop star who's been propped up by the music industry label as a star, and maybe they write their own music, maybe they don't, but they're pushed around like Pink Floyd's character in The Wall or whatever, you know what I mean, as a character, and like that's who they have to be. Does he need to be this? Can he be someone he wants to be? The people I look up to, they do a bunch of other stuff between like a podcast and live streaming, and also working for maybe a company as well, and that's different revenue sources. But that's talking about the money. We're talking creatively. Do you still want to do this? The people who have made it and don't feel it anymore, I guess I can understand that. And yes, it is easy every time someone's like one of these big streamers complains about how hard their life is. It is both true and valid to their experiences, but also for anyone else that's not doing that wants to be that badly. It's boo hoo, I'm famous and rich. Maybe they're not rich, because we don't know any of the finances.
Sometimes people,
it might not be the case at all. Right.
Yeah, views don't always equal money.
You can look at a giant sponsorship, and I get it, but like, there's two sides of that coin. Be grateful, be thankful for how lucky you are, and how much work you put into it, as the same luck and effort are equal in order to make things. I really feel. but for the people that do really feel that creative energy, they decide what they want to make, and they will find, and people will find them. There'll be a meeting in the middle of the things that they're doing to find an audience to make them, what they need to keep that as a livelihood. I don't see that. I don't see, like, it's not like professional gaming where it's like, oh, my reflexes are so poor, I can't be in League of Legends online scene anymore because like I'm done. But then I look at the fighting game community, and Diego's like in his late 40s, I think, and he's still like one of the best Street Fighter players ever. Still. And he's old, so maybe that's not even the case anymore. But that's a difference between, like, I guess, needing to be the best at something and that's who you are, and firms as an online content creation
and I
versus
feel like
being someone
Ninja,
that wants to creatively make things. Because
yeah,
again, all of the people who are a little bit younger than us, who've only grew up watching Let's Plays and stuff, the people that they watched have left or they've changed. And who they become now, if you follow, if you were to keep up with some of these people, you either like grow and appreciate them or you don't. Like there are people that are older than us that have grown up watching the careers of movie stars, right? They have changed and evolved, and you're following. It almost feels like a homecoming story to like go see what they might have become now versus where they came from, that type of stuff. And that, like I said before, we have yet to see the full cycle of an online content
right.
creator, like one that has stayed in the business. There are movie stars that are dying left and right that have been working in the industry since they were a quarter of their age when they died. You know what I mean? That have gone through all the changes. You've seen maybe Matt Damon complain about how streaming has killed the indie film industry because you used to be able to make all your money off rentals, and now that's gone because everything changes. You got to change with it, and I feel like that's just what people need to do because of the access. Everyone's getting into it. I'll end my whole thing here with 2 points that are from other people that I have that I'm now going to relate. The reason why you and I, Devin, are here doing this podcast right now is because we wanted to do something, right? And the topic of our podcast, as maybe bad for SEO as it is, came from my suggestion based off advice I had heard one of the people I look up to say, Bob Mackey of Retronauts and Talking Simpsons podcasts. I think I find the guy genuinely funny, and as someone that actually does the research when he talks about stuff. Something I don't even think I can ever even do. Like that's an insecurity of mine. But still, besides that, he gave the advice once for people that want to do, I think, podcasting specifically, but this applies to anything that you make online. If you think you can do something better than other people, do it. But if you can find something no one else is doing, do that first. We did this podcast about the Sonic movie as a joke, but also like we're doing it because no one else is, and that would be both funny to us, but also like here is us. We are the guys that do this. We did a Vin Diesel podcast that kind of ended, but it's just whenever there's a new thing, it will roll out once in a blue moon. I think literally that's the pace at which it would be at. So that's the pace of movies 100%. For a single actor. That was another suggestion. I think I suggested that, but that was based off mutual interest and stuff. I don't want to take credit necessarily, but like still, that's the same philosophy of do something no one else is doing unless you think you can do it better than other people. We talk about all this access. So much of it is shit. Look at like people on
that's
YouTube.
What I'm saying.
Look at what's around us right now.
Diamond in the rough
stuff
kind of thing.
Took me, a while to learn how to make, simple graphics like this. And I don't want to self-serving. I'm saying that phrase so much I'm practically Joe Biden right now.
Let's go, Joe.
This took some effort to do, not a crazy amount of effort to get decent at. And that's what I'm going to say I am is decent at it. I'm not good. I'm decent. But this is way more than so many other people do. That's all it takes to stand out, and that's just one piece of the puzzle. And the other point I'll bring up too, and this is actually a video recommendation. I've recommended it to you, Devin, many times, and I've mentioned on the show a few times as well. Um, but as we're talking about like this kind of golden age of the internet, most of it, as I said before, comes to nostalgia and what we remember, but that changes with the times. Younger people will remember the iPad era, you know what I mean? Because they're iPad kids. They're going to remember just finding random stuff on YouTube on their iPad. Whether it be you and I have never experienced YouTube Kids, but there are plenty of people who have, who are probably, of an age that would be watching this now, right? Because of parental locks and stuff like that. So that nostalgia and that feeling of remembering like days gone by for how we live our lives and create things is important. So here's the video recommendation. Tim Rogers of the YouTube channel Action Button, 2 years ago, and this was the last video review he had put out. He's still working on more, to my knowledge, at once. Put out one of my favorite videos of all time on the internet. It's more than a video game review. It is more than like a deep dive into one's like own catharsis. It's more than all that stuff in general. But his video is a review of the video game Japanese PlayStation 1 game Boku no Natsuyasame on the YouTube channel Action Button. Goes into all of this that I basically have been saying in ways that are more about life, that I feel like is one of the most important. I'm just gonna throw this out there. One of the most important videos on YouTube, just in general. We're getting now to the stage where there have been enough videos out there about hobbies and stuff like games and entertainment and stuff that have created a culture, and we are now getting into the stage where we're getting videos that are commentary about that life. I mentioned the Dan Olson video, I Don't Know James Rolfe. That's what that is, right? That is exactly what that
was
is.
and that was a good one. Like, it wasn't, it went in with one thing of analyzing like you said, an early creator of like the people I didn't watch Video Game Nerd, but like of that era, right? And then realizing you're similar but different, it's kind of like the general theme of that. And I did like that kind of, reflection, right? And that's why I hope more people do, is like having that honest reflection, right? And I think it's like one of the reasons I want to have this conversation, because like that's what we're doing. We're part of, we're not a major part of it, but we're still part of this time that we're in, right? Like, but yeah, no, I agree with your points. And yeah, I think it's just like, this has been on my mind. I'm sure it still will be on my mind for a long time, because this is how my brain operates as I ponder.
Well, we're getting to the age where we have to really think about what we want to do and be, right? Yeah. I've decided what I want to do and be, but trying to get it seems impossible. And I'm still fighting that fight right now of like, no, I need this. You know what I mean? So, but that's
I think
me,
I'm kind of,
right?
I think sometimes I'm there, and then other times, I try to remember in a way, like, once again, getting older, we talked about earlier, like, oh, we're hitting 30. It's kind of the start of, you're not even like a young adult anymore. You're starting to hit that. You're the start of your mid years of your life. And I feel like mid year is a long time, and there's, I think about, when you're a kid and whatnot, and I'm like, am I still doing, and Bryn my partner always tells me, Bryn, she's like, we all change too. They say you change every 10 years, like that. You're like, sometimes I get anxiety. I'm like, man, do I even know who I am anymore? That sometimes I feel like it happens to a lot of people when
Your
they
cells
turn this
change
age
every 7 years.
Yeah. But what my point is like, I know I've always been creatively driven, and as long as that drive is there, and maybe the things I'm using my creative energy in changes over time, whether it's podcasting. One of my goals is to do music, and I've been actually, for the first time in my life, been really actively doing it, thanks to circumstances that fell upon me that I'm thankful for. So it's just like, I'm trying to do that, and to me, it's like, too, is like, yes, capitalism will wear us down, but the real creatives, the real ones, no matter fucking what, even if they're have a real job in the sense of making money elsewhere, they find time for it, they make time for it. And I always knew that too, like even before going to this conversation, but I wanted to bring it into the internet because I feel like that's what we're seeing is like, yes, the monetization's there, the commodities are all there. And, maybe people like Ninja realize they're on the down end of just doing what you're, like you said, just doing Fortnite over and over again into oblivion. And maybe that's the difference between creative people. Not saying he isn't creative, but just like someone who's creatively driven. I wake up in the morning thinking, man, if I didn't have to go to work today, or I'm at work, I'm like, man, I'm working on this one song, or I gotta think about what podcast episode we're gonna do tonight. Those kind of things, like that's what drives, I think, me and you and a lot of people I know who are, artists. That's why I use art. I don't like to say we're creating art, like you said, necessarily, but I compare ourselves to, like, I'm saying, like, people who are really actively creative compare themselves to, you should compare yourselves to people who do their traditional art, whether it's graphic design, painting, movie making, any of those things. To me, those are creative people. And not everyone's driven that, like, or programmed that way, or however it works. Because I know there's people in there who are really passionate about gardening or whatever, but I still think you can be creative in gardening, but just not in the traditional sense. Because I was actually talking to Bryn about this last night, where I'm like, I know people who wouldn't call themselves creative, or maybe I wouldn't view them as creative like I said, in the traditional sense. Like they don't have interest in, like, maybe necessarily like making things in the sense of, I want to make an art piece, I want to make a video, I want to make a podcast, versus you can still be creative in, I know how to build things, or I know how to manufacture something that maybe helps my community or whatever it is. That can still be creative, just in a different way. But the differentiation I'm trying to say? Like, there's
right.
a different...
I've met people that don't have hobbies, and that scares me almost as a person, like, and I get it, it's an older generation thing to be like, my work is my life, my job, but like, when we talk about the access stuff, I'm just going to throw this out there. Everyone wants to be able to do something like this. Something where they can be themselves in a way where, again, they're not having to do a 9 to 5 on something they don't want to do. Like, that's what everyone would want. So everyone is striving and grasping for this stuff. And I've seen people that, like, oh, like, they have a hobby, maybe they do have a hobby, but it seems weird to me because they're not making anything. And that is just the kind of person I am, where, like, I want to make things, and I want to hear people talk about the things that they've made or that other people have made in ways that influence and inform them.
Or I want to be like, hey, this is the best way I can describe this thing in an artistic form. And
right. And
whether
me,
it's like,
that's all life matters to me, is to be able to do that stuff. And I don't know, I feel weird when, like, I don't judge, but I feel weird and strange around people that have no interest in that stuff. Like, there are plenty of people, like, I've worked with, when I was much younger, worked with a lot of people that I don't really think if they were a guy, their hobby was video games, you know what I mean? And movies and stuff. And, like, I would definitely say I have taken video games to be a hobby for sure. I consider myself enthusiast. This was $40, $45. Hey, Hachi.
Yeah.
No sane person would do that. You know what I mean? But I'm an enthusiast on that, and that doesn't make me better than anyone else. But, like, still, like, I live and breathe this stuff. But there are people like, oh, like, they just like hanging out playing that stuff, and then, like, for the most part, for, like, a lot of women, young women, like, they don't say they have any hobbies, but then I see, like, they have 3 hours worth of work done on their face with all the makeup. All that stuff takes a lot of skill and knowledge and experiences doing that stuff. Like, that's a hobby that they might not realize is a hobby, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, you caring about something.
And I think that ties into
and making things is what makes a hobby, I feel like, important to you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, yeah, I agree with you, but I think what goes against it is this, capitalism and the goal of the drive to commodify everything. And that's why things don't feel like hobbies, maybe, for some people. Because, like, yeah, maybe, once again, we don't know Ninja, don't want to, like, we're not, could be totally wrong, but I'm just using him as an example based off the quote he said, which started this whole conversation, where he says, I don't know if I have much left in me, because maybe he's just burnt out on playing Fortnite, but he doesn't know what else to do, because that's what he's been doing. But maybe it all started because he was just good at Fortnite, which is probably like how I'm just really good at Fortnite. There's one guitarist I follow. he's from Animals as Leaders, which is like a very like technical metal music. It's called gent because it's like math metal, they call it, because it's like so technical. It's not necessarily the easiest to listen to. And there's other people who I feel like don't do it as well as they have. I feel like their stuff is a good like combination of complex but also digestible. But he, like, I would consider him a guitar god, knows his instrument in and out, plays a 8-string guitar, just all over, like play any note as quick as possible. Right. And he's always said, like, dude, he still gets self-conscious of, I'll see a dude online on TikTok who's playing some crazy shit on the guitar. And I'm like, why the fuck can I not do that? When meanwhile, I'm like, I can barely play my bass guitar, it feels like, compared to the shit he's doing. And it's like, we always got to remember too, like, there is always going to be someone better.
But there's a lot of people worse.
But there's a lot of,
like, it's okay to have imposter syndrome, but there are actual imposters out there. There are people, I mean, right. Generative AI has given so many people an excuse, you know, to like think that they're actually artists, to think that they're actually creatives because they have an idea for something. I mean, there are people, God, I don't want to bring up the MCU again, but I will. There are people who, and this is a video I've wanted to do for a while. I think there's a difference between stories and wikis. And there's a lot of people who want wiki stories and they don't want stories. I want a story that can modified down into bullet points on a page in a wiki. And there are people that go and they watch big summer blockbusters seeking the wiki information. They don't care what the thing has to say. And that's just a big thing about art in general. Like, we bring up, you know, many times on this show, literacy, literal literacy, as well as like media literacy and understanding like meaning and message and stuff. And there are people that don't do that. And there are people that don't do that and want to create mainly for clout, I think, and money, because if they were creative, they would be inspired and they would think, but I don't think they do that. Who like just think like, oh, I want the things I've already seen. There are people who get upset when something like Star Wars changes. I'm not going to bring that up any further than that. And they get upset at that because it's different than what they've seen before. And what they've seen before is what they want because they like what they've seen before. I've talked about in the past, like, my favorite video games of all time have always been like first for me. And a lot of them have been when I was younger. And for me now, the games where I really am like, oh my God, I love this so much, is something really crazy new to me that I didn't think I would ever, you know, fall in love with. Nier Automata is one such game, right? I want things I haven't seen before. I do not want to watch a movie that someone else can describe based off things that already exist. And sometimes that's fun, but still, like, there are people who are, like you say, like, there's always someone better than you. And that's easy for us right now, but there's a hell of a lot of people worse. You know what I mean?
But I don't even, I guess my thing is, I don't want to even like put it on a like hierarchical way of looking at that. To me, it's just like, at the end of the day,
I mean, like, I'd be like effort in trying, like wanting something.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to tie it back to like going back to my like thing of, there's the traditional creative and there's just general creativity. I think everyone is creative to some capacity in whatever they do. They might just not think of it as, once again, the traditional creative, which is where I'd put myself and you in as well, where it's like our goal, our drive in life, or something we're passionate about, is making things, whether to make people happy, sad, whatever, or to tell a story, whatever it is. It's just that creative drive to just, you know, and then that's been in human history forever. People who painted on walls back in the caveman day, I know it's cheesy, but like, that was a creative driven thing to do. They didn't just, not everyone was doing that. Some people are just like, I think this would be cool to do. We're humans, whatever, you know, we're trying things. I think it's part of the human experience, right? Is to try new things, try to go outside your comfort zone, but also express yourself how you want to express yourself. You know, and to me, it's like, I guess my message too would be to anyone maybe who's watching this, who's on the fence of doing something creatively, and like you said, there might be people who are bad at it. You might be bad at it, but just fucking try it and go for it. Cause like, I'd rather see someone put, like you said, effort is half of it. and like maybe skill comes from doing things over again. As a video
Right.
editor, I never was trained. I know you never were trained in, like, we did some classes in graphic design, but just doing it over and over again, we've gotten better at it. Will we
Right.
ever be perfect? Probably
Podcasting,
not.
being on camera and talking. We've been doing versions of this for 5 years now, and I know it's a skill that it's can always get better. And we haven't peaked in terms of potential skill, but we are certainly a hell of a lot. There was a time where I wouldn't have felt comfortable being on camera. I don't look any differently now than I did then, but like that confidence, you grow that, you know what I mean? And so we've
Yeah.
gotten better than that. We can always get,
Yeah. And that's
even
one
better
thing I just
still.
say, yeah, just want to say is like, yes, there might be someone always better to you, but that doesn't mean you should stop what you're doing. And, if you're creative enough, you'll find ways to do it. Whether, like I said, at the couple, like 15 minutes ago, where it's like, and maybe there's people, like I said, there might be streamers or whatever who do this shit because they got big at the right time, and they, not saying they didn't put work into it, but got big in the right time, and then realizing, I actually don't like doing this. I'm just doing this for money. No different than we all have to get up to work and go. The average person has to get up and go to a job they probably don't like because we just got to, because that's the system we're in, right? My thing is, like, once again, it's just like, if you're creative enough, I think people who are traditionally creative, aka people who wake up in the morning and think, how about like art form, any type of art form you can think of, whether it's online media or painting, whatever it is, like those kind of things, I think don't. My fear is, like, with a commodifying of everything, is that like those type of people get worn down because there's people, like you said, imposters who are taking advantage of the monetization of everything and
Right.
AI and whatnot. And that's why I've always been passionate about AI, and a lot of people who I think don't care about AI aren't creatively driven. I'm like, no, like, this is fucking over the people who, like, not even just, I'm taking myself out of this. Like, I know artists who do like actual artwork who are fucking pissed that their shit gets stolen, that they put 20 hours into a piece and then someone just throws it into a fucking thing and sells it to a company and they make the money that they deserve, or just even just the respect that they deserve. It's disrespectful to me.
That's
And
right, folks. We deserve respect, please.
well, it's more
Um,
just like, and I'm not even saying like worldwide respect, but it's just like, even if you know
it's a
someone who
dignity
does
thing.
shit, it's
It's
just like,
honor.
respect what
Yeah.
they do. Like, no different than if, like I said, you're creative about painting, like, even if you don't buy their art, but at least be like, just, I don't know, just respect those people, man, because like,
Yeah.
the world does grind out creativity. That's one thing I'll die in a hill saying, is that capitalism doesn't breed innovation. It just crushes creative people and tries to find ways to make you go to just your regular office job or into the factory. Like, that is the end goal for everything under this, in my opinion. The reason that there is creativity is because there's creative human beings who want to just make shit no matter what. And yes, there's things like money that take change creativity, unfortunately, like movie directors. Like, man, I wish this movie director got an unlimited budget, or just money wasn't a thing, because then they could actually really make that director's cut they always really wanted to make, or whatever it is, but they have to because of powers that be. But yeah, I guess that's like this conversation in a nutshell for me. Is like, I'm worried, I guess, because of just how other things have been impacted, but I think, like, we had a really good. I hope other people think that we had a good discussion. I feel like it's something I wanted to discuss for a while, like, deeply, because it does affect us, but I think it just affects potential new people who are interested in the online media, and just like the pros and cons of it. And I guess I'll like the end of David Bowie's interview, basically saying we're on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying. And that's like honestly my feelings towards it, where it's like, yes, the potential is there, but like there's also so many, things that we've talked about in other episodes: misinformation, media literacy,
Yeah.
AI, the ethics of things that are dangerous, and whatnot. But there's also pros that, like, in a way, everything is more accessible, and like I can talk to someone from Russia and maybe get to know them. I mean, that's crazy to think about. People 50 years ago couldn't communicate with other people across country outside of hoping you find a pen pal program. So it's just like, there's that part of it too, which I think is good. But yeah, that's my rant and our
All right.
conversation. I think that was pretty good.
I think that will do it for us today, folks. Remember, please Oh, that's the wrong
As
thing.
if we just talked about,
Like,
hit
subscribe.
the like button.
This is a YouTube video. Please share this if you felt that anything that we've said, I don't want to say has touched you in a way, but like has reminded you of things. Please share in the comments
Impacted
below on
you.
this YouTube video.
I genuinely would love to hear other people's opinion on if they're older than us, younger than us. And even if you disagree, I actually would like to hear why in I want people to be open about this, because I think it's an important thing to talk about, because we're kind of part of the not new generation, but we're in that middle part, and then our kids and people younger than us are starting out and whatnot, and just generally have those concerns, but also hope for them as well. So yeah.
And I think we'll leave it at that. So oh my god, we haven't been recording this whole time. Just joking. See ya.